very proud to call this gentleman my friend. He is the executive chef of Mastro's. His name is Matt Briggs. And as you all know, did you pay them?
I did.
Cool.
Yeah. Not much. Loose change.
Well, a little bit.
But yeah.
Mastro's has consistently been hailed by diners as one of the top 10 steakhouses in the U.S. It's the sophistication that we love. It's not only the steaks, but the fish as well. And you'll find Matt at the helm of the Ocean Club at Crystal Cove. He's an incredibly talented chef, and he's going to show you some of the secrets, tricks, and some of the tips of the trade. I'm going to sit here and add some wonderful culinary commentary. So if you have questions that you'd like to ask of Chef or I, please holler or raise your hand or otherwise. But without further ado, of Mastro's, Chef Matt Briggs.
Thank you, everybody. Well, I think what my demo was supposed to be about today was just picking steaks, picking beef, what to look for when you go to the supermarket. But if anybody watches the Food Network or Cooking Channel, pretty much everybody watches that nowadays, right? You wouldn't be here, I don't think, unless you were some kind of food enthusiast or a foodie. If you do watch those shows, if you watch those channels, you can leave because I'm not going to say anything. Okay, you can just go now. No, they cover so many things on those shows. I don't know if there's a whole lot that I can really add, but I can tell you about what we do, what I do, and what I consider to be fine beef. I work with it every single day. I've been doing it for years. This is my sous chef Paul, by the way. He's the one who's cooking for you today.
Paul. Thank you, Paul.
He's the workhorse.
We're tossing gnocchis, Paul.
I'll tell you what we're doing today before I get into describing some of the things I have on my table here. What we're going to do today is let you guys have a little bit of our seared New York. We've got a little crust on our New York strip today. We're going to have crisp gnocchis that are infused with a little bit of truffle, a little bit of rosemary. We're going to finish with a red wine reduction and some truffle oil on the plate as well.
Okay.
So that's what you guys are going to get to try today. We're going to smoke you out for a little bit, but bear with me. That's kind of the the hazard of the trade.
You guys in?
Yeah. Okay.
Sir, you don't want any? Is that what you said? No, I didn't think so.
Okay. So what I got Paul doing right now, he's got a couple of what we did is we took a New York strip, which is a primal, what we call a primal in the industry. There's a New York strip, an export rib or a ribeye or prime rib. That's a primal cut. Anything that you would cut a steak off of would be considered a primal cut. What we do is we take these whole primal cuts. They come in anywhere from a tenderloin is around 6 pounds, which is a filet mignon, up to export rib, which is a bone-in ribeye that we serve, the prime rib with the bone, and those go up to about 15, 20, 25 pounds, depending on the type of animal it comes from. So what we do is we took a whole New York strip, we cut it all the way down, and instead of cutting steaks off like you would normally do or you would see in a restaurant, like I've got here, if you can see these are two
can you all see those?
Different types of New York strips here. Instead of cutting the steak, I cut the whole loin lengthwise a few times. So this is the same type of steak right here. This is New York as I've got right here. What I've done is I cut it into thirds. We have a special steak rub at the restaurant that we use. We roll in that steak rub. Really scorching hot pan with a little clarified butter. Sear it off until it gets this gorgeous color. I'm going to go put it over here so you guys can take a look at it. We like to put a nice crust on it. Alright, so those flavors really infuse in there, and we don't get a whole lot of juice, a whole lot of flavor loss and juice running out of it. I
don't even notice that.
Can we talk clarified butter? Because I think that it's a great chef secret that everyone should know about. Anybody making clarified butter at home? Anybody using clarified butter at home? Anybody want to know why you should? Yes. Okay.
Well, I'll tell you a little something. Clarified butter is, for those who don't know what it is, it's just butter that's been separated from the milk solids. So you boil it down nice and slow, not too hard, and then what separates it comes to the top at the beginning and then gently falls to the bottom. Those white solids are called milk solids. That stuff we discard. We strain out just the clarified fat without burning it, and it's nice and golden brown or golden yellow, excuse me, and it just is it just imparts flavor. It's good to cook with because it's got a high smoke point. Not as high as some vegetable oils, maybe olive oil is a little higher, and peanut oil, but you can get it very, very hot without it breaking down and burning and going rancid. So it's very fun to cook with, and it's probably my favorite thing to cook with. just because it gives so much flavor to your food.
Essentially,
it's just rich.
The best butter flavor without spending a lot of money on butter, and it evaporates all the water out.
Is there any difference between that and ghee?
And ghee? I'm not familiar with ghee so much.
The Indian clarified butter?
I don't know what they would do to it. Maybe Jamie can handle it.
I'm familiar with ghee, and no, there is no difference.
There you go.
They call it ghee, and we call it clarified butter. And you don't even have to bother to make it today. You can actually buy it in a little container near the butter at your favorite supermarket. Like
so let me answer that question. Yes, it's the exact same thing.
There you go. No, this is what we call 2 for the price of 1.
That's right.
Right.
But if any, you guys, I'm sure you know who Anthony Bourdain is, correct? And his first book, Kitchen Confidential, one of my favorite books, and one of my favorite sayings, and one of his little quotes in there is, "My food will always taste better than a home cook. Will always taste better than yours because I use butter. I finish my sauces with butter. I cook my food in clarified butter." People at home like the olive oil. They like canola oil. They'll use vegetable oils of different types. Classical French cooking, always butter, and that adds a richness and adds a nuttiness and it adds so much flavor to your cooking. We have a saying in Masters, you don't come to Masters to lose weight. You come there to enjoy yourself and to indulge yourself.
No, really?
Yes. If anybody's familiar with the butter cake, that is probably our lowest fat item on our menu. So
right.
Try that right before you have a marathon to run. Well, let's start. I came here to talk about some steaks today. Let's go through what I brought with me today. Now, first of all, everybody who's familiar with steak knows that you go to the store and you get some, they grade steaks in different ways. The USDA. Prime, choice, and on down. Mostly what you see in stores is going to be choice meat. What we use at the restaurant is certified prime. Very popular right now is certified Angus beef. You've got your Wagyu beef, you've got your Kobe beef. Certified Angus is fantastic. It's American made. It's one of probably the best American beef you can buy. We use something a little different in our restaurant. We use what's called Holstein cows. Holstein cows are dairy cows. About 25 years ago, they decided that in the dairy industry, when the dairy cows have offspring, the male offspring, you can only do so much with so many bulls. So they decided that it was getting a little overpopulated with a lot of male Holstein cows, and they turned them into cattle, started using them for beef. And what you're going to get from that, and I'll just give you an example, is you get longer animals with the dairy cows, where the Angus are shorter, taller. So you're going to get longer loins, thicker cuts. So what we have here, we have a Holstein New York, and that's a 16-ounce cut right there. See how thick it is? It's not quite as wide. You don't have a lot of plate coverage. And this here is an Angus piece.
Look at that.
It's a little thinner, but you're going to have a lot flatter. Cut, and you're going to have a little more plate coverage. We like to use this because it retains flavor, retains moisture, retains fat.
Look how much thicker that cut is.
Right?
Pretty.
And now I'm going to show you something else that's the difference between what we're using here and these two products, and that'll come in a second. So we have several cuts at the restaurant. We use all prime. We have a ribeye, or this is cut off of the primal prime rib, bone-in prime rib, which we call an export rib. This is what we would call a strip end ribeye, which means it's a little closer to the shoulder. You have a little less fat running through the middle. The fat's mostly on the outside of the steak. If this was something, if you go and you want a little fattier, more flavorful cut of meat, what you want to get is a chuck end, which means it's further back on the animal, towards the last ribs, and you're going to have this fat slowly moves into the middle of the steak. You're going to have a nice kernel of fat, and you're going to see a little more fat, a little more marbling through the outside. Okay, so those are for the people who really love to indulge in those really fatty, juicy cuts of meat. This is going to be a little thinner, but still the ribeye is going to be your best for flavor and tenderness. All right. Next, I've got a fillet. This is my 12-ounce fillet that I brought from the restaurant. This also is a prime cut, but as you see, not quite as much marbling in the middle as, say, the New York. You don't have all that fat in the middle, and you definitely don't have as much fat as this here. Okay, so
my kind of steak.
Very, very tender, but you're not going to get the flavor profile you're going to get with these other two steaks.
Chef, okay. Would you entertain us, please, with some conversation about bone-in versus without
absolutely.
the bone? Because I think that's another one of those Tony Bourdain tips.
Yeah.
My meat off my barbecue will always taste better than yours because you are cooking boneless pork chops and I am not.
That's right. Bone. besides having fantastic marrow that everybody who
The best.
loves to dig into a nice piece of bone marrow. This bone imparts into the meat when you cook it. There's certain enzymes within the bone that they say when you cook that, those enzymes are released in the meat and tenderizes it and adds flavor to it. It also helps the beef cook a little bit slower than it would otherwise. It acts as a border between direct heat and the meat itself. So if you do go in and you order something like this, we also offer bone-in fillets at the restaurant, one of our signature cuts, which is very popular because as the bone sits on the side of the steak like this and it cooks, the heat will just get in to about right there. And then the rest of this, right next to the bone, stays a little more rare, it stays a little more juicy, and it just retains a lot of the flavor, because a lot of the flavor is not going to drip down onto your grill and kind of dissipate. It just stays right next to that bone, and it holds on to it, is what it does. So, for my money, a bone-in ribeye is going to always taste better, always be a little more tender, a little more juicy than one without the bone. The filet as well, and also something we call a Kansas City strip, which is a bone-in New York strip. So, if you have a chance, go pick one up, put it on the grill, see what happens. Once you cut into that steak, you're going to find it's probably like a medium rare. It's going to be a little medium towards the end, and as you get in, it's going to be really rare towards that bone. But it's going to taste a whole lot better than it does without it, because it's not going to dry out. And like I said, that bone protects it from the direct heat, and it just helps keep all those flavors right there inside the meat where you want it, not on the bottom of your grill in the charcoal briquettes.
Nice. I'm going to ask you to pause there, Chef. Any questions thus far? Anyone want to know what kind of salt Chef uses, or is olive oil choice? I do. What kind of salt do you use, Chef?
Well,
I love to ask chefs that.
Okay, a couple things. It depends on what the application is.
Okay.
On our salads and things that we salt right at the end before they go out, when we're not cooking, we use we like to use a fleur de sel, sea salt. And then when we're seasoning our fish, seasoning anything else that's going to go on the grill, on the broiler, in the oven, we're just going to use a nice kosher salt.
Nice.
And always cracked pepper. We crack it ourselves, toast it a little bit, and then crack it and season everything with that.
Beautiful. Everyone has fleur de sel at home?
Yeah.
You all know it?
Oh yeah.
Very easy to pick up.
Yeah.
That's anywhere. You can pick that up anywhere.
Yeah, but it has this beautiful, very subtle, pastry chefs tend to love it, or it started there at least. It has a very subtle floral finish to it, from the lavender that grows around the waters where the French salt is collected, thus fleur de sel. There are lots of different salts out there. I actually recommend on the radio that you have a salt tasting at home, which is when most people do this. Really?
We keep a bunch of different salts on hand. My
Then
wife's
you
over
know
there.
what
We
you
have
like.
it at the house.
Yeah.
I like smoked sea salts.
Ooh,
I like the
me too.
Scottish smoked sea salts. I put them on anything.
Yeah.
Except,
On a tomato.
I'll tell you what, they're even good on chocolates. Just if you're doing a little truffle at home and you want to do something that's going to knock the socks off family members or something. If you know anything about truffles or ganache or whatever, just find a good recipe, make some, and then just right at the end, right before that chocolate cools on top, just sprinkle a little smoked sea salt on there. You can't imagine what it's like. You just pop in your mouth, just get a little salty with the sweet, and then something just kind of flutters into your brain. You're like, what is that? And then it's like, oh my God, I'm like barbecuing by the sea with chocolate in my mouth. So it's fantastic. You can't go wrong with that. So I highly recommend that.
Okay.
Now, one thing I want to show you here. What I brought here today, I brought a couple things I want you to look at. I showed you the New Yorks before. Now, this is the New York strip. I picked this up today. This is Costco's finest New York strip. Choice, okay? You've got one little piece here. It's got a little vein running through. You see a couple little veins of marbling through there, a couple little veins of fat. This is my prime New York strip. Next to it, you don't have that vein through it, and all you have is big veins of fat running through it. Okay, the color's a little deeper, a little darker red, and I don't know what else to say. It's beautiful. You can, if you do a side-by-side comparison, you can definitely tell the difference, taste-wise, visual-wise. When you cut into it, it's going to be juicier and just it's a lot more flavorful than those choice steaks you're going to get. So if you can go to a fine butcher shop and pick up some prime, you're going to pay a little more for it, but it's well worth it. I mean, if you like the barbecue, if you like the grill, if you are a meat eater and you want to do this at home, I recommend picking up prime if you can, whenever you can. Yes?
What does the darker color mean in a steak? You say that one's darker. What does that mean? in flavor.
Lady in the front is asking what the darker color means, and I think it's a good question. Should we be looking for darker red hued steaks when we go and buy
I'll
the
tell you
butcher
what.
shop?
A darker color, deep dark red, usually means that it's a little fresher. It can tell you a lot about the way the animal was raised.